the idea behind CSR boardroom was that we need to understand as to what is going on within an organization with regard to corporate social responsibility, whether it is grant making, on monitoring, on evaluation, or due diligence, or reporting on corporate social responsibility or director's report. I'll just give you an idea as to what is happening if Mr. Mathur, who is here, if he's listening. There is a company, big company, which is in has a large CSR budget. He approached this company, and the answer from that company, the reply that he got from that company was that they don't have any budget as far as the CSR fund is concerned. And there are many other organizations or replying to the queries in the similar fashion. But when the annual report comes, we see there is a lot of unspent CSR amount within the organization. We wanted everyone within our ecosystem understand what is going on in a CSR head's mind while in grant making or doing due diligence or reporting corporate social responsibility spend, or presenting a report to the board.
Okay.
The last, in fact, the first edition of this dialogue was with Mr. Sitaram Gupta, who is the executive director of Lupin Foundation, and we had a nice conversation on various pertinent issues with regard to not only CSR but also social development and the areas that his organization is working on, including aspirational district program or livelihood related activities. In the second, we have Mr. Rishi Pathania with us, who heads UPL's CSR initiatives of the country. So without wasting too much of a time, let us first hear as to what he has to say, then we'll chip in and we'll ask him, bombard him with a lot of questions.
I'll be happy to take that. Thank you to India CSR. Thank you to Rusen for this wonderful platform that has been created. In fact, I was discussing with Rusen, she's more like an elder brother to me. I think we really needed a platform which is more of a good discussion kind of a forum rather than just one-sided. So I really look forward to some good discussion on this forum. Just to start the discussion, I think it will be very appropriate for me to give you a bit of a background about UPL and the landscape of CSR work that we are doing, just to start with.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah. So UPL is one of the world's leading total crop care companies. It's focusing on securing the world's long-term food supply through an integrated portfolio of agriculture products and solutions. It was established in 1969 and now is active in more than 135 countries, providing a diversified range of patented as well as post-patented agriculture solution for various arable and specialty crops. Including biological crop protection, seed treatment, post-harvest solution covering the entire crop value chain. So UPL works in a complete crop value chain. It's headquartered in India. You can say a truly Indian multinational company with manufacturing location in 48 locations worldwide and a global workforce which is having people from 75 nationalities. We are committed to research and development and innovation and hold maybe around 12,000 product registration and more than 1,000 patents globally. In 2019, UPL made an acquisition of Arista Life Sciences and committed to a new purpose, Open Ag. We are talking about an open app platform which creates a seamless network for agriculture, creating connections across the world's agriculture system. We are also working to for a new sustainable growth and to help generate deeper impact on society. So that's a background of a company which is truly an Indian multinational company, started in India as a small scale industry, but now fourth largest in the world. From a CSR space, from a CSR perspective, UPL, I think, has always been committed to giving back to the society. And I'm very proud to say that we started giving back to society 50 years back when UPL was a small company. Still, there was a thought process of giving back to society. And that's the reason that all the best institutions that are now in this part of the world was started long back as a small initiative by UPL. Primarily because at UPL, we believe in all inclusive and sustainable growth of the society. The philosophy has been, this philosophy has been really the guiding force for us, for our all community intervention disturbance. So primarily we have two core values, UPL core values, which is a guiding force, always human and open hearts. These are the two guiding forces for us to do community initiatives. As I said in the beginning, at UPL, we believe in a holistic and sustainable growth of society, and our commitment translates into 4 focus areas. The first one is institution of excellence. So the first focus area for us is institution of excellence. The second one is sustainable livelihood. The third one is nature conservation. And the fourth one is local and national area need. So that's a broad 4 thematic focus area that we are working in. If you just see, we have established a lot of institutions of higher education, whether it's a school or whether it's a college or whether it's a tribal school that we have adopted or a nursing college. From a skilling perspective, we have a landscape or a complete institutions that we are working with for the higher education under our institution of excellence thematic focus area. The second focus area for us is sustainable livelihood, and we are working on agriculture development with small and marginal farmers. Under sustainable livelihood, we are also working on skilling of dropped out youth, primarily focusing on skilling on industrial skills. So that was the second focus area. That is the second initiative under sustainable livelihood, which is targeting the youths, dropped out youth. And we have also started focusing on skilling of rural youths, the dropped out rural youths. So that's under our farm mechanization program. We are working on Adarsh Krishi Yojana. The last one is working with women through self-help group and creating entrepreneurship and industry, small scale activities, livelihood activities for them. The third focus area for us is nature conservation, where we are working to conserve nature through species conservation. We are working on Sarus. We have adopted Sarus as a species, and we are working for conservation of Sarus. We are working on deer and ungulate breeding project. We are working on social forestry project, which Hussein and others have visited and have seen what the kind of activity that we are doing. We are working on mangrove plantation. We are working on water conservation. We are working on sensitizing and educating school children through Eco Club that we are working around our communities. And the last focus area for us is local and national area need. Even though we have a very well-defined 3 thematic focus area, there are a lot of other need that comes at a national local area need. COVID-19 response is one of them. It's a national need, even though not under focus area, but we have to respond. So that's a kind of a gamut of activity that we are doing in CSR at UPL. I thought this can be a starting point. I've not gone into very detail of each and every activity, which I'll do as per your question. Just to add one more thing, possibly UPL is the only company in the world where we have taken CSR to our global sites. So we have UPL Brazil, which is working on a complementary education program around its factory. We have UPL Colombia, which is working on a whole life cycle. We have UPL Argentina, which is working on establishing social security office in the factory site itself. We have UPL Mexico, which is working everywhere. UPL Kenya. In COVID-19, there were other 10 UPL sites also which came on board. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is at UPL, it's in our DNA. So whether we were a very small scale industry, we always did for the society. Now we are globally fourth, we are doing accordingly, taking our value systems to our global sites and other places and doing for the society. Also would like to bring to everyone's notice, possibly we are the only company which is consistently working and giving more than 4 to 5% of net profit every year since the time this act has come. In fact, right from beginning. So that's a kind of a framework or maybe a landscape of CSR activity that we are doing. This was just to start with, and now I'm open to your question and any more detail that you want.
As UPL is into phosphorus, you said you are into sustainable livelihood.
Yeah.
So this is mainly in the rural areas, or
Yeah.
you also cater to urban poor?
No, we cater to urban poor also. It's but I'll say predominantly it's more of a rural focus. But we have our initiatives in Bombay also. In urban centers, we have our initiatives in small urban centers also. I'll give an example of Bombay, where we have a wonderful program where we are working with a lot of grassroots NGOs. We identified in the first phase 6 NGOs. We worked with them. These were the wonderful organizations which has created a lot of impact. But as you can imagine, it's one person driven, or approach was not there which is needed, or maybe the documentations were not there which is needed. So we worked on the building their capacity on a first phase, which included making their annual reports, which included ensuring their audits are completed on time, all legal compliances are there, building their capacity on HR and organization development. And then we gave them a seed fund to start a project. Now we have moved into second phase. We are again working with 7 new NGOs. So this is predominantly in an urban area. Plan is to replicate this to the Delhi and other circles also. So it's a mix of both. As I said, primarily depends on the need. So that's how we drive our initiatives.
Okay. Since our topic of the conversation is art of CSR spending, so let us focus more on the nitty-gritties of the operational issues than the focus areas. So I think I will have one question here as to how do you select the NGOs? What are the parameters, or what is the guideline you have set for selecting the NGO, or what is the mandate you have been given trust upon by the board?
We are working with more than I think 35 odd partners, 30 to 35 partners right now. And the mode is very simple. One is they should be in line with our thematic focus area. That's the first thing. If I'm working on improving agriculture productivity, then I think they should be in line with what we are doing, and they should bring something to the table. This is a competency that we have. This is an expertise we have, and this is where we can chip in. Like we are working with Aga Khan Rural Support Program in Dang area. They came with SRI technology at that point of time. Geographical location was also there, as well as our thematic focus area was also there. You're working with UMA in Valsad, which is having a competency of bringing women together and working on livelihood. So we are working with a foundation which has a competency on social forestry. So essentially, our screening criteria is at 2 levels. One, it should be in line with our thematic focus area, the focus that we are having, one. And second, they should have that geographical presence where we really want to work in. So these are the broad 2 filters. Now, generally what happens is ki there's an organization which will just approach me ki, can you give us a CSR fund? That's not the way CSR works. It doesn't have something called a CSR fund. It has project, it is to be implemented, and it has to be implemented based on organization's focus area.
Oh, Mr. Shiv Tripathi has some questions. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Apresh ji, and thank you very much, Pathania Sahab, for a wonderful presentation in summarizing everything about that, how you are doing in terms of CSR. My question is a follow-up question of what Apresh ji just mentioned about that how do you select NGOs. So I was wondering that how do you select the proportion of CSR spending on different thematic areas, like when you decide that, okay, this year, these are the themes or projects which are going to be important, what we are going to implement. So how you make that judgment? Is it like based on certain strategic plan for CSR, or it is based on certain? So I was just wondering, so I thought to, if you could shed more light on that.
Thank you, Dr. Mr. Tripathi.
Sure, you can call me Shiv Tripathi. Yeah.
So I think it is the way it works in our organization is we did a pretty in-depth kind of a need assessment of area that we really wanted to work in. It was a third-party need assessment that we went for. And what we did was we identified 3 kinds of need that is coming out in our area. First one was deficiency need, the second one was growth need, and the third one was development need. So these are the buckets that we created. We also picked up indicators which are there for a deficiency need. At that point of time, we picked up 8 indicators. The 7 indicators were there for growth needs and 9 indicators were there for development needs. So all in all, this is how we went. This is how we approach it, because we figured out it can't be a person driven or just an ad hoc approach for us. I'm talking about 6 years back when I started, and I'm coming to your question also, how we really address that. So based on this, we analyze everything and we figured out if we really want to create impact in our area, this is a focus area where we have to make a maximum investment or maximum effort for us. Now, based on this, we identified our thematic focus area. If these are the indicators, which are the vulnerable sections of the society for this area. Why I'm saying this, I'm not negating that what others are doing is not important or that is not a focus area. I'm just talking about this is what we identified. ये deficiency need है यहाँ पे, ये हमको identify करके ये work करना है. उसके हिसाब से we identified 3 main vulnerable sections. One was the small and marginal farmer, ना तो जिसके पास उगाने का knowledge है, ना backward linkage है, ना market में ले जाने की उसके पास हिम्मत है. दूसरा हमने ये आइडेंटिफाई किया कि टेक्निकली हर कोई सबके साथ काम करता है, जो ड्रॉप्ड आउट यूथ है टिपिकली 10th और 12th में, वो बेचारा कहाँ जाएगा. सो वेदर इट्स एन अर्बन एरिया, रूरल एरिया. थर्ड वी सेट की बॉस एक नीडी वुमेन का भी सेगमेंट बनता है बहुत बड़ा, जहाँ पे जिसको पूरा घर चलाना है, सब कुछ चलाना है और शायद नहीं होगा. तो हमने अपने तरीके से ये 3 नीडी सेगमेंट को हमने आइडेंटिफाई किया और ये 3 हमने कहा कि इनको एड्रेस करने के लिए ये हमारे प्रोजेक्ट्स होंगे. दिस इज हाउ वील मूव अहेड विद आवर प्रोजेक्ट्स. Now, based on this, we requested our management to make a long-term commitment, because आप समझ सकते हैं ज्यादातर लोग जो डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर में हैं, this can't be one of activity कि आप कहीं कि भाई 1 साल कर लेंगे, नहीं होगा. डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर में आपको टाइम देना होता है, ठीक है. तो उसके बेसिस पे हमने उनसे ये किया कि हमारे 5 साल का ये प्रोग्राम है, इसमें साल दर साल दिस इज हाउ द इन्वेस्टमेंट विल बी, इस तरह से हमारा पैसा लगेगा. Which we agreed with the board, which management agree, and that's how we started implementing. So it's a very scientific process. Started from a need assessment, then making identifying a vulnerable section, making a program for them, developing partnership. अब मुझे ये करना है तो इसके लिए मेरे पास बेस्ट पार्टनर कौन सा हो सकता है, जो टेबल पे लेके आता हो एक्सपर्टाइज किया, इसको इस तरीके से कर सकते हैं. That's how we went ahead and that's how we define our budgets. And I think this is, मेरी समझ से शायद ज्यादातर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में यही प्रोसेस होता होगा.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
इस पूरी प्रक्रिया में त्रिपाठी जी एक चीज बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होती है, वो ये है कि कंटिन्यूअस डायलॉग स्टेक होल्डर्स के साथ रहना बहुत जरूरी है. तो चाहे वो डायलॉग मेरा वुमेन ग्रुप्स के साथ में हो, चाहे यूथ के साथ में हो, चाहे फार्मर्स के साथ में हो, इसके साथ में जो लोकल एनजीओस काम कर रहे हैं वहां पे उनके साथ में कंटिन्यूस डायलॉग चलता रहता है कि भाई और क्या क्या हो सकता है। क्योंकि बहुत बार क्या होता है, एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और एज एन इंडिविजुअल वी डोंट नो एवरीथिंग, वी डोंट हैव एवरी रिसोर्सेज, वी हैव टू ब्रिंग इन एवरीवन टुगेदर। एंड आई थिंक कॉर्पोरेट्स का जो रोल है वो कैटलिस्ट का ज्यादा है, जहां पे यू कैन ब्रिंग एवरीवन टुगेदर एंड जस्ट सी हाउ इट एवरीथिंग वर्क्स। सो दैट्स समथिंग दैट वी आर डूइंग।
So you what's your annual CSR spend?
यूपीएल का एनुअल स्पेंड इज अप्रोक्सीमेटली 20 to 25 करोड़ के उसमें आता है, जो इंडिया का मैं बात कर रहा हूँ। ग्लोबली फिर हमारा और भी दूसरे तरीके से होता है, बट इंडिया का जो एवरेज है, और जैसा मैंने कहा कि हम लोग प्रॉफिट ड्रिवन नहीं है कि इतना प्रॉफिट है तो हमको इतना ही करना है। ये हमने अपने प्रोग्राम के हिसाब से डिसाइड करके रखा है कि ये हमारा 5 साल का इतना इन्वेस्टमेंट पैटर्न है। तो आप अगर देखेंगे तो हमारा कंसिस्टेंट है, ये हमारा कंसिस्टेंट है बिकॉज हमने एक प्रोग्राम डिसाइड किया हुआ है और वो अभी 5 साल उसका कंप्लीट होने को आ रहा है। अब हम नेक्स्ट साइकिल में फिर एक बार पूरा का पूरा अपना वापस दिमाग लगा के कि अभी हमें किस डायरेक्शन में जाना है। सो इट्स बेस्ड ऑन दैट, एंड दैट्स द रीजन कि हमारा प्रॉफिट भले ही ऊपर नीचे हुआ हो बट हमारा स्पेंड हमेशा वही रहा है, एंड इट हैज ऑलवेज बीन 4 to 5% ऑफ नेट प्रॉफिट ऑफ यूपीएल इंडिया।
Now, I was just going through news. In fact, one of my colleagues had written this story that you had donated 75 crore rupees to PM CARES.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you think your existing programs are going to be affected due to the donation given to PM CARES?
No. These two are different things. We are not into mode कि यहाँ पे ये हो गया। वो एक नेशनल नीड ऐसा आया जहाँ पे स्ट्रेच करके करना पड़ा, विच वॉज नीड ऑफ द आवर। ठीक है, अगर आप ग्लोबल क्राइसिस में हैं तो वो मैं कहता हूँ कि हम बहुत बड़े शुक्रगुजार हैं अपने मैनेजमेंट के कि उन्होंने उस डायरेक्शन को सोचा, बट उन्होंने कभी यहाँ का बजट वहां नहीं किया है, या जो हमने डिफाइंड बजट है वो नहीं किया है। दैट्स द रीजन। ये अपनी जगह है, वो एक अलग से जरूरत आई जो ऐसी अर्जेंसी आ गई जिसके कारण ये करना पड़ा।
So you are saying that the PM CARES, the amount that you donated to PM CARES will not go into your CSR kitty?
See, it's not a question of whether it goes into CSR calculation or not. What I'm saying is कि it will not affect my development plan, my partnership, my existing project.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you're already going ahead with all the programs that are existing.
Yes. You have to go because I think हम लोग जितने लोग डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर से बहुत अच्छे से इस चीज को समझते हैं कि लॉन्ग टर्म कमिटमेंट चाहिए होता है। आप ब्रेक करके नहीं कर सकते, ये वन ऑफ एक्टिविटी नहीं होता है। अब अगर आप सोशल फॉरेस्ट्री की मेरे प्रोजेक्ट की बात करेंगे तो क्या मैं उनको अभी छोड़ दूं बीच में? इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल। वुमेन जिनको मैं 3 साल से जिनके साथ मेहनत कर रहा हूँ उनको फॉर्म करके आज उनका हमने लाइवलीहुड का काजू का इनिशिएटिव शुरू किया हुआ है, कहीं पे हमने उनका नागली का प्रोसेसिंग यूनिट डाला हुआ, तो उनको बीच में नहीं छोड़ा जा सकता। दैट्स नॉट पॉसिबल, और वो करना भी नहीं चाहिए हमको। इट हैज टू बी अ लॉन्ग टर्म इनिशिएटिव कमिटमेंट। मैं आपसे फिर कह रहा हूँ कि हम द वे इट वर्क्स इन यूपीएल इज देयर वाज अ नेशनल नीड, और ये सिर्फ एक फिगर है बल्कि कमिटमेंट इससे बहुत ज्यादा है कोविड-19 के लिए यूपीएल में। हम बहुत ज्यादा उसके बारे में बात नहीं करते क्योंकि वो इमरजेंसी है, पैंडेमिक है, बट दैट डजंट मीन कि ये पूरा का पूरा शिफ्ट करके उधर कर दिया गया। डेफिनेटली कुछ चीजों पे असर आएगा कि जैसे जो कैपिटल चीजें जिनको शिफ्ट की जा सकती हैं, कैपिटल एक्सपेंसेस होते हैं बहुत तरह के जिनको शिफ्ट किया जा सकता है, विच इज ओके, वो कोई बहुत बड़े फर्क नहीं पड़ता उनसे।
ओके,
बट फील्ड बेस्ड प्रोजेक्ट में कोई वो नहीं।
Okay, so what is your process of selecting the NGO? I'm shifting the gear to another side. There are some corporates who engage consultants. There are some organizations which actually announce a grant program and then invite applications on a portal, and then they evaluate a project and then give. What is the method that you adopted?
We don't have that kind. As I said in the beginning itself, हम लोग hands on experience वाले हैं. हर चीज हम खुद से implement करते हैं. इनफैक्ट हमारा ग्रैंड नाम के ज्यादा हमारे पास अपॉर्चुनिटी होती नहीं है. हमने प्रोजेक्ट बेस्ड ऑन नीड हमने आइडेंटिफाई करके रखा हो, वहाँ पे हम पार्टनरशिप देखते हैं जहाँ पे हम साथ में मिलके इम्प्लीमेंट करें. सो वी रियली डोंट हैव समथिंग कॉल्ड एज ग्रांट मैनेजमेंट. वी रियली डोंट हैव समथिंग जहाँ पे होगा हम जॉइंटली मुद्दे पे काम करते हैं साथ में मिलके. और वो जैसा मैंने शुरू में कहा कि इट्स प्राइमली बेस्ड ऑन वन थीमेटिक फोकस एरिया, टू ज्योग्राफिकल एरिया जहाँ पे है, तो वहाँ पे आइडेंटिफाई करके साथ में वर्क करते हैं.
नहीं, पार्टनर्स से आपका क्या मतलब है? द एनजीओज और इम्प्लीमेंटिंग पार्टनर्स और सम स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनर्स, फॉर एग्जांपल सम कॉर्पोरेट फाउंडेशंस और
ओनली एनजीओ पार्टनर्स. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट एनजीओ पार्टनर्स, ग्रासरूट इम्प्लीमेंटिंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस.
So it is understood that you first decide that you have to do a project in a particular geographical location, in a particular focus area. Then you identify, you and your team identifies the implementation partners, and then you approach them, and they send you a proposal.
Yeah.
And you sign the agreement.
Also कुछ केसेस में ऐसे होता है, जैसे मैंने शुरू में ही कहा कि वी आर नॉट सर्वगुण संपन्न कि हमें सब कुछ पता है या हमें सारे मुद्दे सब कुछ और सब पता है. बहुत बार हमारे पार्टनर्स बहुत अच्छे प्रोजेक्ट्स ऑन बोर्ड लेके आते हैं, न्यू पार्टनर्स. तो कोई अगर एग्जिस्टिंग आइडिया है बहुत अच्छा है, जैसे मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल बताता हूँ, ग्लोबल पार्ली प्रोजेक्ट के बारे में अगर आपने सुना होगा, जो मराठवाड़ा में जो चल रहा है, वो यूपीएल पूरा का पूरा सपोर्ट कर रहा है. वो पूरा का पूरा यूपीएल सपोर्टेड प्रोजेक्ट है, ठीक है. और भी काफी पार्टनर्स हैं उसमें, बट यूपीएल वाज द मेजर एंड टू स्टार्ट विद एंड सपोर्टिंग दैट प्रोजेक्ट. वो आइडिया मयंक जी का था, ग्लोबल पार्ली का था, ठीक है. वी वेर मोर इनटू सपोर्टिंग. इसी तरह से अभी हमने यवतमाल और उस बेल्ट में जो काम शुरू किया हुआ है, वहाँ पे जो हमारे लोकल पार्टनर है, एकदम ग्रासरूट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, उनकी कुछ बहुत अच्छे थॉट प्रोसेस थे कि हमें ऐसे करना चाहिए. तो वी जस्ट वेंट अहेड विद दैट एंड वी आर कंप्लीटली पार्टनरिंग एंड सपोर्टिंग देम फाइनेंशियली एज वेल एज हर तरीके से. तो इट डिपेंड्स. वन, पहला जैसे मैंने कहा वो तो हमारा बहुत क्लियर है कि हमने कुछ आइडेंटिफाई किया हुआ है, उसके हिसाब से अलाइन होता है कि. दूसरा ये भी है कि कोई बहुत अच्छा ऐसा आइडिया जो निकल के आता है, जो जरूरत है बहुत ज्यादा, then we are also supporting. और ये बड़े बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स है जो हम सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, जो मैं आपसे दो एग्जांपल मैंने आपसे कहा है.
वंडरफुल. आपका जो फोकस एरियाज हैं, जनरली मैं देख रहा हूँ सारे मिड टर्म या लॉन्ग टर्म वाले प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, जिसमें मिड टर्म या लॉन्ग टर्म एफर्ट्स की जरूरत है. फॉर एग्जांपल सस्टेनेबल लाइवलीहुड.
जी हाँ.
You require at least 3 to 5 years for the program to mature, to give you the outcomes that you desire. How do you report annually?
I think हमारा जो I think this is something that because मैंने एनजीओ सेक्टर में बहुत लंबा काम किया है, so I think this is something that is worth learning for everyone. मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल शेयर करता हूँ. मैं अपने जो एनजीओ पार्टनर्स 12 हैं अपने जो हमारे मुंबई में है, उनके साथ में मैं खड़े होकर बात कर रहा था कि मैंने कहा कि साहब एनुअल रिपोर्ट आप लोग की कब तक बनेगी. तो उन्होंने कहा अभी तो प्रोसेस शुरू भी नहीं हुआ है, जुलाई अगस्त हो गया है. तो हमने दिखाई कि हमने कहा हमारी ये ग्लोबल रिपोर्ट है, ये हमारी रिपोर्ट छप के जुलाई में आ चुकी है, इट्स ऑलरेडी देयर. ठीक है. आपको प्रोसेसेस ऐसे बनाने पड़ते हैं, आपको सिस्टम्स ऐसे डेवलप करने पड़ते हैं कि वो ऑटो मोड पे होना चाहिए. एंड आई थिंक एट यूपीएल हमारी जुलाई तक हम लोग हमेशा अपनी रिपोर्ट, ग्लोबल जो हमारी सीएसआर रिपोर्ट है, वो रिलीज कर देते हैं हम. उसके पीछे रीजन एक ही है कि प्रोसेस इस तरह से बनाए गए हैं, और बिकॉज इस पे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का भी बहुत बड़ा हाथ होता है. जैसे हमारा जो बोर्ड है वो बहुत एक्टिव है, जो सीनियर मैनेजमेंट है बहुत एक्टिव है सीएसआर में. इट्स नॉट कि खाली वो देख रहे हैं कुछ हो रहा है. दे नीड ईच एंड एवरी डिटेल. सो वी हैव अ मॉनिटरिंग सिस्टम व्हिच स्टार्ट्स एट अ मंथली लेवल. मंथली हमारी जो डिटेल बनती है, देन इट गोज टू क्वार्टरली न्यूज़लेटर. ये सारा मिलके एनुअल में होता है. तो क्योंकि हम मेहनत बहुत मंथली और क्वार्टरली लेवल पे शुरू कर देते हैं, तो हमारा ईयरली उतना आसान हो जाता है मॉनिटरिंग करना. बल्कि मैं अभी इस लेवल पे कोशिश कर रहा हूँ कि हम इसको रियल टाइम कैसे बना सकते हैं. with technology it's possible. So it's all about how do you make your process and system. At UPL we have a very strong monitoring mechanism, because that's a requirement at a board. It's not my requirement as a CSR, it's a board requirement कि this is what we need on this frequency. इसमें सिर्फ एक चीज होती है जो आई एम श्योर लॉट ऑफ पीपल फ्रॉम डेवलपमेंट वर्ल्ड विल अंडरस्टैंड दिस. When you monitor at a monthly level, you monitor an outcome or maybe an output. आप जब जैसे आप ईयरली जाते हैं तो शायद आपका आउटकम लेवल पे आ जाता है, बाद में इम्पैक्ट लेवल पे हो जाता है. तो वो इंडिकेटर्स को बहुत ध्यान से सेलेक्ट करना पड़ता है कि आप क्या चीजें रिपोर्ट कर रहे हो. सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप में मंथली लेवल पे मैं सिर्फ नंबर ऑफ सेल्फ ग्रुप फॉर्मेशन या स्ट्रेंथन की बात करूंगा. बट जब मैं साल में पहुंचता हूं तो कितनों का बैंक लिंकेज हो गया, कितनों को फायदा हुआ. बट मैं इम्पैक्ट लेवल पे देखूंगा कितनी महिलाओं का इसमें लाइवलीहुड चेंज हुआ. तो वो डिपेंड करता है इंडिकेटर. तो आपको सिस्टम भी अपने उस हिसाब से बनाने पड़ते हैं कि वो अल्टीमेटली जस्टिफाई करे आपका लॉन्ग टर्म जो आप इम्पैक्ट क्रिएट करना चाहते हैं.
सर 2 क्वेश्चंस आए हुए हैं चैट बॉक्स में. Have you done any impact assessment of your CSR activities by Umang Pathak?
हम 2 लेवल पे करते हैं. एक तो आउटकम है जिसमें भी हम थर्ड पार्टी, बट हम प्रॉपर जो इम्पैक्ट असेसमेंट है वो हमेशा हम थर्ड पार्टी से करवाते हैं, जो हमने 2016 में किया था और 16-17 में किया था. और as all of you most of you are from development sector, you will understand and appreciate it needs maybe 4 to 5 years to do a third party assessment, because tabhi you can measure and relate to that. But we said ki we'll have a 3-year rolling cycle kind of a thing. So this year we are going for outcome analysis.
My question is, what are the key challenges while working with the community side challenges? Rishi ji, what are your observation that community creates issues for the corporate led social development program?
The biggest challenge in corporate CSR program is when you work on a long term sustainability, and when you work on a project or a program level sustainability. Because just to give you an idea, if I'm starting my skill development center, to make it a sustainable, you need to have some kind of a fees mechanism. It's not that we'll earn from it, but I think it's more of to create an ownership and to create a model which can work once we withdraw after 4-5 years. I think the expectation from corporate world is more of a dole. Yeah, bhai kuch de do and you just leave. I think that's the biggest challenge, and it took us a little bit of time to handle this, because we said no, we are not working on that mode. But I think, to my understanding, this is the biggest challenge. Challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 is I think people taking granted कि भाई ये क्या है. भाई हम we all are from development sector, so we know and understand. ऐसा नहीं कि हम अनजान लोग यहाँ पे बैठे हुए हैं. Even my senior colleagues, so they are business people, but they understand development very well. So I think वो गलतफहमी नहीं होना चाहिए कि development क्या है, कि वो खाली किसी को ही समझ में आता है. So I think these are the 2 major challenges that we have to handle on a very regular basis. इसके साथ में एक तीसरा भी जो चैलेंज जो सबसे बड़ा हुआ है, that is expectation from government and others. वो जबकि जो पूरी thought process थी, that was bringing in corporate expertise in the development world, but I think the expectation of fund is now more as against expertise. So वो हर लेवल पे हो रहा है. तो ये मेरे ख्याल से सबसे मेजर चैलेंज है which we are facing.
Do you have a corporate to corporate partnership?
We have a very small as of now. We tried something big, but it has not worked out as of now. But we are really trying for that, because we do think that there's a lot of opportunity to bring in convergence at that level. Not necessarily that everyone has to focus on just one and everyone works on that. Global Parley is a good example where we are not only the ones who are working there. I think there are 2-3 more partners, so it's a kind of a convergence, and everyone is bringing with their driving their own expertise. But at a very local level, we have not been able to do, but we really wish to do that. COVID में कुछ थोड़ा बहुत हुआ था, but I think at a larger level, जो आपका question है, answer is कि अभी तक उतने अच्छे से हुआ नहीं है जितना होना चाहिए corporate to corporate partnership.
Do you see any opportunity in this area?
There's a big opportunity because, as I said, CSR is not about the funds. I think it's all about the creating impact and bringing in management, and that's only possible when you work together and everyone comes together. Then only it's possible.
Do you have any partnership with government, any government, state government and central government in the recent government program?
Yes, not in the recent program, but our skilling centers, we are in partnership with government. For our nature conservation project, we are in partnership with government, whether it's a state level or at the national level, apart from NGO partners that we have for this. But definitely, yes, we have partnerships.
Do you feel that there is also requirement of capacity building of our implementing partners and new NGOs that we need to bring on the board?
I think there's a huge need, because what is happening is, and my Mumbai project is completely on that direction. In fact, I'll be starting this initiative in Delhi also in point of time. But there's a huge need, because what I've found, and from a development sector, I have understood and I know for sure that a lot of good organizations which are doing very good work, but they're not aware of. In fact, अगर मैं अभी भी इस forum में question पूछूं कि how many of you have read the PDF version of CSR Act, I don't think I'll get a lot of good replies. So that is a major challenge. We really need to first understand, need to educate people, our partners from small NGOs, build their capacities, build their systems which are required. एक सिंपल सा रिक्वायरमेंट है कि आप 3 साल के आपके ऑडिटेड स्टेटमेंट्स हैं कि नहीं, एनुअल रिपोर्ट्स हैं कि नहीं, बिकॉज दैट्स एन हाइजीन डॉक्यूमेंट, दैट्स अ फर्स्ट डॉक्यूमेंट दैट यू विल सबमिट टू एनीवन. सो देयर इज अ ह्यूज नीड टू बिल्ड कैपेसिटी ऑफ small NGOs which are doing excellent work in the field. I really see that that's a big need.
So what is the board level expectation from the CSR leader? They give please.
I think I cannot say about others, but at UPL, I think our from a board, I think board level expectation is very clear. They want to create an impact in the society and whatever work that we are doing. I don't think in my board anyone is interested in small activity here and there and just taking photographs, and no one is interested in that. The whole vision and focus of UPL board is to create impact in work that we are doing.
We have Ms. Sonki Shah with us, and she would like to ask a question.
Thank you, Amrish. Rishi, we are talking about sustainability. We are talking about output indicators, which really makes a lot of difference when we are implementing a project at grassroots level. So basically, my question is, during this COVID-19 situation, where a lot of things got disturbed, and when we have so many people and the organizations are really struggling to keep the momentum of the work they are doing at the grassroots level, how UPL as an organization is coping up with that challenge without compromising the outcome indicators we have set for the year?
That's a wonderful question, Sonki, but luckily, my management and my board is such that they have not curtailed anything for the work that we are doing. So we have really not been impacted the way I see others have impacted to keep track or maybe to manage their outcome impact. We have not been impacted that way, and none of our program has been stopped. None of our initiative was stopped. COVID-19 was a plus to what we are doing. It's not like a total and we are minusing that. So it's an addition to what we are doing. So that
Yeah.
way we are better off.
Yeah, that is financially. I'm talking about when we talk about implementing the project at the field level. So
I'm also talking about implementation. None of our initiative, in fact, I was in field just few minutes back. So
Okay.
that is continuing. We are taking all kinds of mandatory guidance that's there to manage the social distancing, but we are working in field. So you'll be surprised to know that we have formed 4 farmer producer organization in last 3 to 4 months with all social distancing and with all kinds of guidelines that's being there for us to implement.
Because as an organization, we are facing this challenge with our, with the clients we are working with, where we are ready to go in the field. We are working at the field level, but the companies, our clients tell us that you don't go there because if in case any infection, takes place or anything happens, the company will be blamed for that. They will get the blame. So therefore, a lot of projects have been stopped. I'm sure not just in our case, but many other organizations must be facing the same challenges. So I'm really
I'm sure.
glad that UPL hasn't stopped anything at the field level, and many congratulations to you as an organization for doing the wonderful work.
But I'll just repeat, we are taking maximum precaution that's needed or that's being given as a guidance from the government. We are not, in fact, when I was in field, there was a proper social distancing of not only 3 feet, we ensure that it's a 6 feet, 2 meters. That's what we are following up. So even if you are having a meeting, it's in open, everyone's sitting 6 feet apart. So, but I think what essentially we decided was that we have to work with all kinds of precaution.
Right.
In fact, when we work for, we went for relief work for COVID. I don't know whether relief is the right word, but when there was a reaction for, we all went to the field. Huh? So we did that with all social distancing. So why should not we do the other development work? The only thing is we have to be very careful. There should not be group that's coming together, but I'm sure we all are educated enough to understand and implement that.
Yeah, true. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. There is one question from Mr. Abhinav Mathur. Do you have any initiative or interest in capacity building of teachers across the country? At this juncture, education is a big turmoil and there is a need to focus on teachers so that they can lend the kind of support children will need once schools start. Mental health.
That's, Amitav, a very broad and a big topic. I really don't have an answer to your complete question, but I'll just give you an example how we have addressed in a very small way in area that we are working in this. So because there's a big a burden on teachers now, so we have worked continuously to build their capacities. One, from a technology perspective. Second, we are also, this I'm talking about Dang, which is a tribal pocket and a very backward district. We are also working on introducing the size sectors there, which can be linked to technology. So I think I'm not replying to 100% of your question, and I don't have that kind of a bandwidth where I can work on all these things at one go, but I really understand that this is a need, this needs to be done, but it's just that as of now, I don't have that bandwidth and capacity to do this because we have defined certain focus area. We do feel such livelihood is something which is utmost important right now.
Wonderful.
But when I'm saying this, I'm not negating or maybe disregarding your submission, which is very valid, which is also needed.
So since you work on sustainable livelihood as one of your major focus areas, with migrant workers having gone to rural areas, how do you think your experience of working with partners or communities and many other such initiatives will support these migrant workers, or what is the way forward?
Apresh, I think मेरे लिए आंसर करना बहुत मुश्किल है, because I think not many would be able to answer this. I can just give a ज्ञान part of it कि ऐसा होना चाहिए, but I'm sure we all are struggling to understand the situation every day and trying to make our strategies accordingly every day. But what we are trying to do is we are trying to again focus on rural economy, how we can really make more initiatives around agriculture, because that's something that will sustain their livelihood. So we are working on that direction, but I don't have an answer. I don't have a way forward also, because this is something new to me. In fact, even my responses are kind of a learning every day and then working according to the situation.
Okay, sustainable livelihood, again, I'm coming to that because that is one of my passion areas. So how many villages you are actually catering to through your programs?
We are catering to approximately 80 to 85 villages directly where we are implementing. Through our partner organizations in other areas, maybe just add 90 to 100 more. So that's which I'm directly working and extensively working. I'm not talking about one go training and that kind of a thing.
So what's your model in the program? I mean, I have not visited your program, so I would like to understand from you as to what all do you do in the sustainable livelihood program?
In sustainable livelihood, as I said in the beginning, we have identified three vulnerable sections of society. One is a small farmer, and to address that, we have something called as Khedut Pragati, which is an agriculture development program which has a complete bunch of activities. It starts with training, exposure, then seed and everything to it. Now we have reached into stage after 4 years where we are working very hard on market linkage part of the farming chain, because we realize it's equally important to focus on their market linkage as against working only on building capacity and backward linkage. So we are working on that part. Market se direct link karana. We are taking help of technology in that. So again, we are working on dropped out youths. We are, for our urban centers, we have a hardcore industry skill centers. For our rural areas, we have something called as Adarsh Krishi Niyojana, which is farm mechanization project, skilling youth so that they get an employment. The third is the needy women, where we are working on the formation of groups, nurturing them, linking with bank, forming their clusters, forming federation, then working on livelihood initiative, group-based livelihood initiatives like Nagli processing unit, that's already there. There's a Kaju processing unit which we have started 2 months back. Then there's a initiative around honey. There's an initiative around artificial jewelry. So we are creating clusters different. So that is a nutshell of initiative under sustainable livelihood. And just to give a perspective, our projects, and this is possibly Apresh your question was, our process is something which is we call a 5E process. It starts with engaging with the community to understand needs and prioritizing the needs. The second step for us is to evolve the community needs by facilitating the community to identify the prioritized needs. The third one is enabling community. There's no fun or no point in just driving yourself. I think they have to be the core of work that we are doing. So we enable them. We enable them to a level where they are not only partners in planning, but implementing, monitoring, as well as impact assessment. And through this initiative, we wish to enrich, which is my 4th E, the life of people. And the last piece is evaluate on a very regular basis, whether it's my monthly report, whether it's my quarterly report, whether it's my annual report, whether it's my impact assessment report, or maybe this year we're going for an outcome assessment report also. Finally, I wish to go for an SROI also, the social return on investment that we have made over the last 5 to 6 years. So that's broadly the spectrum.
Wonderful. One question which somebody asked in the chat box, it was about impact assessment of your CSR activities, and you had at length answered to that question. But I'm sure some of your programs have been running for at least 3 to 5 years?
5 years. My most programs will be 5 years. Either is we'll drop it at a initial stage when it's a pilot project, and the process we follow is everything goes into a pilot project mode first, just to check whether it's going as per our plan and deliverables are as per what we are foreseeing. If it doesn't, then we'll drop also. We have done with a lot of projects which has not been to a level where we think it should deliver. But if we have approved, I think it will go for a 5-year cycle for sure.
So,
But as I said in the beginning itself, the idea is 5 years is not an idea to make a continuous investment for 5 years. Our idea is always to make it a sustainable project in 5 years so that we withdraw after 5 years.
wonderful. So you also have some midline report?
Midline assessment you are talking about?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, we are going for that this year. Last complete impact assessment we did in 2016-17. This year we are going for a midterm, which we are calling as an outcome assessment.
Okay. So my submission here was the same actually. When I asked you this, that you do an annual report, but something that you're trying to do is not captured in an annual report or a CSR annual report, right? Because projects like small farmer development or market linkage or whatever takes time to mature, but in order to make a comprehensive report on the projects, it requires at least certain period of time. That is why I asked whether you are doing this midterm.
Apresh, for a complete project documentation, we have defined a time of 4 to 5 years.
Right. Right.
Because that's a time when it gives you a kind of a complete perspective. Where does it stand? So now you'll see my project reports on maybe social forestry project, maybe Saras conservation, that has completed a cycle of 5 years. Now we know exactly where do we stand, what are the impacts that we have created, what are the outcomes that we have achieved from this project, and what is the way forward for us. So it takes that much time. Till that time, it's a regular ongoing documentation that happens. But a complete project documentation is 4 years, 4 to 5 years.
Okay. Okay. My question to you is, I want your opinion as a CSR expert. Do you think the companies are transparent while reporting annually?
I'll not be able to say about others, but from a UPL perspective, we are 100% transparent. We have even given need assessment in our annual report. We have given our impact assessment in our site. So I think I'm taking a maximum transparency kind of a thing where it's a continuous process. Because see, the idea is not that we want to just show to that. The idea is we want to create an impact, and for that it's very important that we get a regular feedback from everyone. And for that you really need to maintain that transparency. So that's a thought process with us here.
And there is too much nitty-gritties now. I am asking you more on what lies ahead among us. Somebody
I think
else
from a development sector perspective, I think I don't know how many of people who are here from NGO background have read the latest notification that has come in. So if it really gets implemented, then I think there will be zero funding scope for NGOs. It's only the Section 8 companies. So I think we really need to understand, write and submit our concern in stakeholder box that's there in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Because then if it gets implemented, I think then we cannot just keep on shouting. I think when there's a window when government is asking us for a feedback, we should give that feedback. And I don't see many people doing that. So we should do that. One. Two is, if you really want to focus on the corporate CSR partnership, I think we really need to have a good idea and a experience around that. You just can't be just forming a organization and coming for a funding request. That's not possible. वो कभी नहीं होगा. You need to be very sure about this is an idea which can create a huge impact. One. Two, what are the scope of convergence in this? Okay, it can't be like, and this I'm saying with my personal experience. I work with a lot of NGOs to build their capacity. You can't be just going with just blank and say ki boss ye aisa hai. It doesn't work that way. So that's a way forward. I think we really have to be very strong about the initiative. Our conviction should be very strong that this will create an impact. Then if you'll approach a corporate, I think then there's chance of some discussion happening is much higher.
We would like everyone to ask questions to Mr. Pathania. I have a lot of questions. In fact, I'll give you a call and then ask you questions for my learning. But if there is any question anybody wants to ask, he may please do so. So before we finish, in fact, everybody understands what you have already said.
Either everyone has understood or no one has understood. There's two possibilities.
So in fact, since आपने वो बात छेड़ दी है हमारे नोटिफिकेशन वाली बात, तो एक सबसे बड़ा जो क्वेश्चन है, इनफैक्ट बिफोर द गवर्नमेंट आल्सो, that the NGOs are not transparent. That is the logic that they are giving in terms of filing their reports in the registrar offices. So now, do you think that the societies which are registered under certain Societies Registration Act are less transparent than the non-profit Section 8 companies which report to Ministry of Corporate Affairs? If it happens, if this becomes the mandate, then what is going to change with regard to the grant making and the focus of the corporate?
I really can't comment on what you have said because one is I'm from a development sector background, so I don't think there's an issue of transparency or credibility with the good organizations which are doing work. When I say this, I am also aware of the frauds of the world and how it's happening. So there's no doubt about that. That there's a good organization working with 100% transparency and a very good effort, wonderful work happening. And my submission is just that, please submit your response to this. If it happens, then I think a lot of good organization will not be in a very good position. They'll have to change the status. Regarding how this will affect the relationship, I'm not the right person to answer that because I'm still assuming that this is by mistake at a ministry level. This is what I'm assuming, and there's a clarification also that others registered under different state act are eligible. So this is my personal opinion, and I'm sure this will happen. But I think we really need to bring into light and bring into focus for everyone that this is something that we really need to put our concern here.
Okay. Last question that I have is COVID-19 and state of CSR during the pandemic, post-pandemic also. There are certain individuals I've talked to said that the CSR is going to be more inward than outward. What they meant by inward CSR is that the CSR has to be strategic and support the business functions, other business functions, and the overall objective and the philosophy of the organization, rather than going and doing everything in in the name of building trust with the community. How do you see this?
I think, Apresh, the biggest change that will happen is, and this is my observation for everyone that's there in outside. I think by February 2020, it was a good thing to do, good thing to respond to as a CSR. But post March, I think this will be a huge eyes on CSR from all the stakeholders. When I say all the stakeholders, it's the internal in the company as well as the external, whether it's a community or NGO or the government. So I think it essentially will bring in a lot of focus also. This is my personal opinion, because everyone will be in radar. So I think there will be focus also. But the negative side is that there's a lot of experimentation that happens with the small organization to test few things. Possibly that will get affected. That's one. Second is, it looks like there'll be a lot of focus around health now, which was kind of an ignored focus area for a long period of time, from a CSR domain, not from a development or NGO domain. So that will definitely come one. But I think all in all, I would like to believe this is a positive development, in the sense there will be a lot of focus now on initiatives, and a lot of actual responsibility for the people who are driving, rather than just a good thing to do kind of an approach.
Okay. Mr. Sujay Jha has asked a question. He has sent this to me privately. So he has written a lot of things, but he actually wants to know whether a corporate foundation is good or bad.
I don't think it's bad from any perspective. Till the time it is developing partnership with others to implement the project. So I think, and also we'll have to just see the reason for this also, because the act also said if you do it through your own foundation, you don't have that 3-year limit and all that. That's possibly was the reaction kind of a thing. But I think I'll not say it's bad. I think it has done wonderful work. Our foundations have done wonderful work. So I don't think it's bad from any angle.
Okay, good. Can you, if there is no more question, probably we should summarize and get going.
Yeah, completely up to you. I'm done.
Okay. So,
although I was little, Sir Hussain bhai, we already covered more than 70 minutes.
We can ask if anyone wants to. One question. There is a NGO and CSR partnership. What the measure to be taken while doing NGO CSR partnership?
I think
what is learning for the NGOs, how to approach for the corporate partnership?
I think my submission to every NGO and whichever forum I'm working in, so whether it's a large 100 NGOs I'm working in Bombay or wherever, my submission to all of them is, first is read the CSR Act. That should be the first step for all of us. And read the PDF version, samjhiye ek line ko, what is written there and how is corporate eligible to make a partnership. You need to understand that first. What are the initiatives that corporate can take? That's the first step. Second is, don't shoot anywhere and everywhere. Where if someone is doing a wonderful work in a remote pocket of Odisha related to health, and if that request comes to me, I don't think I'll be able to entertain that because of two reasons. One is it's not in a focus area where I'm working in. Second, it doesn't align with the geographical area. This is just an example I'm giving. So I think it's a better idea to first identify CSR which is working in your area or where you want to work. Go to their website. Every detail is there. What are the initiatives they're doing, and just see what are the synergies, and then you approach them. Then you have a better chance of discussion happening and it going into some direction. But if you just shoot an email or just call and say कि भाई मुझे funding चाहिए, it will not happen. It never happened even in the NGO sector. When I was working in development sector, it never happened with the funding agencies also. I think I used to do a lot of homework to first is understand if I'm approaching a UK-based funding agency, what is their focus area, where do they really want to. I think that homework needs to be done now also. Then you have a better prospects of developing some kind of a partnership. So that is my submission to all of you.
Your two program is very important. That is social forestry and Saras conservation. Can you share some insight on social forestry? What is the scale and the village level? And one more, there is any requirement to maybe technology can support identification of CSR locations. How a people can see technology driven any map of the CSR map of the organization. Do you have such kind of idea?
In fact, Rusenji, this idea was shared to me and I'm actively pursuing that. This is more from a monitoring perspective for me as a CSR head. It's very important to put it in a geographical perspective in a map and then you get a real-time everything. So that's pretty much possible and feasible. I've already touched base with 2-3 organizations, technical organizations which are working on this. And that's the reason when Aprish was asking, I told him that possibly we'll go for a real-time. Either we develop in-house or something, but I think what you're saying is pretty doable. In the sense you get a complete idea where is the geographical area and which is the thematic focus. This is the two that you want on a kind of a technology platform. So that's doable and that's possible also. Now coming back to your first question of a little bit of a more brief on social forestry. I think we started this project with an idea to create forest cover. We never went for this project for some plantation drive or just to do 1 lakh or 2 lakh plantation. No, we said this is one particular area and we have to create a forest. So that was the thought process which we entered. The first step for us was to work with a panchayat, a gram panchayat, because that's the one which will give land and that's the one which will own that forest. So we convinced them, and I think you all of you can understand it's a bit of a task to work continuously with the panchayat as well as community to develop that. So once we convince them, then I think the second step for us was to creating a barbed wire and a protection around that. The third one was creating an irrigation structure and irrigation mechanism. In most of the cases where we are working right now, it's a very barren land, so we are working a solar based kind of a module. It's linked to the drip irrigation in almost all the plantation sites that we are working in. Then we go for and we are working, and in this project it's a continuous partnership with the government forest department. Then we go for a local species identification, which are the trees which are local, which should be grown here. Many times these trees take a little longer time as against the exotic species, but they will sustain. So that's a process that we follow, and our process is after 5 years, we hand over forest to the community. So we take land do a complete forestry project and we hand over. That's a process for us. And we have already created one big forest in 50 acre, which I think Rusten has also seen. This is very close to Narmada River in Bharuch district. We are also working on 3 more big land pack that was made available to us from different panchayat. All in all, I think in 2-3 years time, we'll be able to create 200 acres of forest in this area. Now, this may look like a small number, but I can tell you this is a very difficult project that you have to sustain and ensure that trees grow. 1. 2, it has to be taken care for 5 years. 1, because it's a completely degraded land that's available to us. And second is the local species that you want to grow takes time to grow. So that's a kind of a work that we are doing. Till now, we have done the work in progress. Apart from completion is around 200 acre. To support this, we are also working on mangrove plantation around Dahej coastal belt. So that's a Rusten Bhai work that we are doing on social forestry.
Saras conservation, please say something about the Saras conservation. What is the development and progress that you achieved?
Okay, so this is as I said, sustainable livelihood is a one focus area for us. The second focus area for us is nature conservation. So social forestry is a part of nature conservation, and Saras conservation is also is under nature conservation. We have 3-4 more projects happening. So in Saras conservation, we were working with the Gir Foundation in Gandhinagar as well as local forest department. We identified this is one species which is from India and most neglected because people are more excited towards the exotic and the species which come from other countries, but our own local Saras, which was neglected to a level where it just got restricted to 1 or 2 pockets in India now. So it's in Kheda and that area in Gujarat and Mainpuri and that belt in UP. So 5 years back, we identified this is a species which we should work to conserve this. So we started creating awareness in the farming community around area that we are working in. We started doing accounting. We started documenting everything. There was no document for Saras till the time we released our document. Then we also decided to make a movie which took us 1 year because it takes a lot of time to document a species. So we have released that also. But this is just one part of the project. The second part was continuously working with the community and making them honor for this. So we started forming Rural Saras Protection Group, Rural RSPG, so that they become honor of this project and working continuously with the forest department. Now we have reached a stage, and I'm happy to share with all of you that when we adopted this project, the species count, when we did, it was 430 something. Now it has reached 800. So that's an achievement that we have achieved. It's possibly one of the most successful projects in species conservation, where we are working actively with the community, creating awareness, making them responsible. We are working with government on a back-to-back basis because they are the ones who will treat if there's anything. And the last piece is creating awareness in the society in general, documenting, releasing that, and creating a mass level awareness. So that's a spectrum that we are doing. It's very well recognized project at a national as well as a global level. So that's what we just hope that the number gets increased over a period of time. And this is where my submission is to other corporates also. This is something that needs to be taken up. Nature conservation is something which has really got ignored for long period of time. So this needs to be taken up.
Yes. Apresji, please summarize within a minute and let us finish the talk and today's.
First of all, thank you very much, Mr. Rishi Patania, to join us and share insights on subjects which are related to your organization, related to policies and grant making, advising the NGOs, the leaders who are present here. And you also answered a lot of uncomfortable, if I may say, questions, and you being cool in answering all the questions. So to summarize what you've said, you focus on uh, three primary areas, and you generally pick up long-term projects. You've been uh, working on 5 E's. Your model related to the CSR projects are based on 5 E's, which are engage, evolve, enable,
Enrich and evaluate.
enrich, and evaluate. So engaging the community, evolving them, enabling them through capacity building and other things, then enriching, and then evaluating the projects. So in the evaluation, there is a lot of questions that still need to be answered as to how you are evaluating. You have a process from monthly reporting to quarterly reporting and then annual reporting, but midterm evaluation of the project is supposed to happen this year for the projects that you already are running. With regard to pandemic, UPL has donated 75 crore rupees to PM CARES Fund. Despite this fact, it has not shied away from its commitment, the existing CSR commitment, which is their 3 focus areas. And also the UPL working model with regard to grant making is that it first identifies the geographical location, the community, then it goes for partnership, and then it implements its projects. I hope I am able to summarize it, or I am missing something.
No, I think mostly captured.
Okay, so with this, I would like to thank everybody, and thank you very much, Mr. Pathania. Thank you all the participants who have participated, who have been mute, who have asked questions, who have listened, who have understood. Thank you very much, and we'll join you all in the next edition of our CSR boardroom. Thank you very much.